On his son's wedding day, a man was insulted by the bride's parents because he worked as a janitor, but what no one expected was the gift he brought for the newlyweds. Peter was excited as he drove to his fiancée's house where the bride's parents would meet his father for the first time. The night was calm, the sky was clear, and the stars shone with the same sparkle as his eyes when he imagined the two families together for the first time. For the young man, this dinner was another important step toward his wedding, a moment he and his future wife Emily had long awaited. His father Thomas, a middle-aged man with a kind and humble appearance, shared the same joy, delighted at the thought of seeing his son get married. "You will love them, Dad. They are really nice people." "Although they are humble," said Peter, Emily had always admired her father-in-law, appreciating his simplicity and kindness. On the other hand, her own parents were always concerned with appearances and status, eager to meet their son-in-law's father, but with completely different expectations. This evening promises to be unforgettable, but not for the reasons the bride and groom expected. As soon as Thomas was introduced to the girl's father, the mood changed. The first questions were polite, but soon the conversation took an uncomfortable turn. "What do you do for a living, Thomas?" The young man's father asked with a curious look. Without hesitation, the humble man answered proudly, "I am a janitor at a university. I have worked there for many years, and I truly love my job." An awkward silence filled the room, and the couple exchanged clear looks of disappointment, showing their disapproval of their new son-in-law's father's profession. Emily felt tense and tried to change the subject, but her attempts failed. "Of course, we want you to know we have nothing against you, Thomas. We just hoped for something better for our daughter." The mother commented with a tone of disdain that made the simple man feel belittled. He looked at them for a moment, annoyed, which was understandable, and said, "My son has a bright future ahead of him. Your daughter is certainly in safe hands." The young man, noticing his father's discomfort, intervened and said, "We love each other, and that's what matters, right, Dad?" The bride's parents tried to calm the situation quickly. They added, "Of course we love you too, Peter. We're not saying you're wrong for Emily, we just have our parental concerns." The dinner, which was supposed to be a celebration, turned into a tense and uncomfortable event. Thomas felt out of place, wondering if his presence was just an obstacle to his son's happiness. The evening ended earlier than expected, with the father and son returning home in a silence filled with unspoken emotions. On the way back, after the dinner, which was a disaster, Peter apologized to his father for his wife's parents' behavior. The father smiled sadly with his usual humble spirit and replied, "Don't worry, my son. What really matters is the love you have for Emily. You're marrying her, not her parents." Thomas, a man of simple principles, raised his son alone after losing his wife during childbirth. Despite the difficulties, he made an effort to provide a decent life for him. He always worked hard as a janitor. His life revolved around Peter, and the simple man did everything he could to at least ensure the basics for his son. Thanks to his father's dedication and support, the boy grew up to become a smart and determined young man. He received a scholarship at a prestigious university, where he met Emily, the daughter of a successful couple. They weren't millionaires, but they lived a comfortable life, and they had some social ambitions. Their relationship flourished during their college years, as they worked and saved money, dreaming of their wedding day. The girl was very humble, unlike her parents, and she didn't care about wealth or superficial things. She just wanted to live forever with her beloved. When they finally set the wedding date, Thomas was as excited as his son. He never imagined, however, that the meeting with the bride's parents would be awkward and filled with unpleasant comments. Because of his profession, the memory of that dinner remained etched in the cleaner's mind. He couldn't forget the looks of contempt on their faces when he told them about his job. Another thing that bothered him was when they talked about wedding gifts. "And what great gift will you give us, Thomas?" the couple asked, hinting that any contribution he could make to the wedding would be insignificant compared to what they could offer. In the days that followed, the man felt uncomfortable. From that moment, he felt diminished and insecure. He knew that the wedding would be a grand celebration with significant financial contributions from his son's wife's parents. What could he, as a simple janitor, offer to rise to the occasion? The man spent sleepless nights thinking about what he could do for his son's wedding. He wanted to show his love and pride for Peter in a meaningful way. Maybe I don't have material wealth to offer, he thought, but I have something that money can't buy. Throughout his life, Thomas was a generous and creative man at heart. He reflected on his years caring for the university, the hallways he swept, the rooms he cleaned, and the many stories he witnessed within those walls. In those moments of reflection, an idea formed in his mind, something unique that no one else could give the newlyweds, something he cherished deeply from his heart. "I hope they like it," he whispered as he looked at the gift, his heart filled with love. On the night before the wedding, Thomas lay down thinking about his whole life and how things had led up to that moment. His son was marrying a beautiful woman, and he had fulfilled his dream of being alive to see the wedding. Although he was very happy, his heart was heavy because he knew he couldn't give something grand. "I'll give them what I have and hope it's enough. When I have more money, I'll buy something more expensive," he whispered, feeling sad as he thought about his financial limitations. Finally, the big day came, and the wedding was planned to be a small and meaningful event, just as Peter and Emily wanted. It was supposed to be small, with only a few close friends and their parents. However, when they arrived at the venue, the couple was met with an unpleasant surprise. The simple decorations they had chosen had turned into a display of luxury and extravagance. They soon discovered that the bride's parents had intervened by hiring a wedding planning team to change everything. "This is our gift to you, dear," they said. "A wedding fit for a princess," they announced proudly. Emily is upset and frustrated. She saw her dream of something simple and personal fade before her eyes. "Why did you do that, Mom? This was our special day, not yours." Still, they ignored her disappointment, convinced they were doing what was best for her. The groom, realizing how upset his beloved was, tried to comfort her. "It's okay, my dear. It's still our day. What matters is that we're here together," he said, trying to help her forget the disagreement and focus on the happiness of being together forever. Meanwhile, the janitor arrived at the wedding venue wearing the best suit he could find. As soon as he set foot in the place, he was enchanted by the decorations, completely unaware that they were his doing. His face lit up with happiness, eager to see his son get married, along with his daughter-in-law's parents. "Oh my God, how beautiful it is. My son must be overjoyed," he thought as he looked around. However, his happiness was soon disturbed by the arrogant behavior of the bride's father. "Look, Mr. Thomas, we're paying for all of this. Isn't that perfect? And what did you bring?" "We hope it's not a broom." They mocked him, which made the guests laugh. Guests they invited without consulting their daughter, people just as small-minded as they are. The man felt insulted, and his cheeks turned red with embarrassment. The disrespect and insensitivity of those two hurt him deeply, but he kept his composure, trying not to let their jokes ruin the joy of the day. Thomas faced the harsh words of that petty couple with nobility and dignity. Although he was certainly embarrassed by the way he was treated, he was no stranger to situations where people tried to belittle him. Therefore, instead of lowering his head, he responded with such tact that everyone around him felt a bit awkward. "It's truly wonderful that you were able to provide such an amazing wedding for your daughter. She is definitely a very lucky girl," he said sincerely, showing his true character. And he made some of the guests feel awkward because of their disgraceful behavior. Then he added that his gift would be delivered later because it is something of great sentimental value, and he prefers to give it to the bride and groom after the ceremony so that the focus remains on them. This annoyed Emily's arrogant parents even more, who wanted to mock the poor man at any cost. The wedding continued, however. The bride's parents kept trying to ridicule the janitor. During the greetings, they mocked him again. "So, Mr. Thomas, where is your very valuable gift for our children? We're curious, because you said it's very special, to deal with this situation." Peter intervened. "Don't worry, Dad, we'll love anything you brought. Your presence here is the greatest gift for us." Emily expressed her love, saying, "I love you like my father, Thomas. We'll be happy with whatever you give us, regardless of what my parents say." The girl's words made her parents feel noticeably embarrassed, because they couldn't accept that she respected and loved Thomas as well. Then the man left for a moment and came back with a huge package. Everyone was curious as he approached the bride and groom with his gift. The guests watched in amazement as the man gave them a large, carefully wrapped painting. When Peter and Emily unwrapped it, a painting of a forest scene appeared, a calm and soothing view that radiated tranquility. It wasn't just a painting, but the rude husband quickly showed his disdain. "Is that all? A painting? Oh my God, Thomas, are you serious?" However, what really surprised them was the signature in the corner of the painting, which they only noticed when they got closer. The girl's parents almost fell backward when they recognized the name of the artist, Henri Decroix. A signature that transforms the painting from just a picture into a work of art, with great value and wide fame. The janitor looked at the painting with a mix of pride and emotion and decided to speak. "This painting has a very special meaning to me." His voice began to break. "It has been passed down from generation to generation in my family. I don't have much to offer, but I wanted my son to have something that is a part of our history." Peter was grateful because he grew up knowing that the painting in his father's room was the only thing he had from his ancestors, the people who raised him. When Emily's parents heard Thomas's words, they quickly approached the painting, showing expressions of shock and disbelief. "Where did you get it? What do you mean it's been in your family for generations?" they asked, almost unable to believe their eyes. Emily was also stunned, looking at the painting and at her father-in-law, because she grew up in a wealthy family and had to learn about art, so she knew it was worth a fortune. The silence that followed was unsettling, and everyone in the room was waiting for an explanation. Thomas, confused by the sudden reaction, began to tell the story behind the painting. He explained that the canvas was painted by one of his ancestors, a French artist whose name he could barely remember. "From what my father and grandparents told me when I was young, he was an artist. But I never imagined that his painting was so valuable," he said, still unaware of the commotion he had caused. At that time, the bride's parents revealed how important what Thomas just said was. "Your great-great-grandfather, are you talking about Henri Decroix?" They asked him in voices trembling with excitement. Thomas nodded, still a little confused, because he didn't understand the importance of what he was saying. Yes, Deku was his name. He confirmed that to them. They both seemed a little puzzled, even the guests. The wealthy people who knew art history were astonished. It turned out that Henri Decroix was a famous artist, and his works had been lost over time, which made them very valuable and in high demand. There were rumors that Decoux's heirs were never found, and his lost works were considered treasures in the art world. Emily's parents, who had mocked Thomas just minutes earlier, were now facing the astonishing discovery that the humble janitor was actually a descendant of one of the most famous artists in French history. The surprise was shocking to everyone, especially to those who felt deeply ashamed of their previous behavior in front of someone who might have been more important than they thought. The bride and groom looked at each other, sharing a moment of understanding and admiration for Thomas. The painting, which until then had been just an emotional gift from his grandparents, had now become a legacy of great historical and financial value. Emily's parents, astonished by the discovery, they tried to apologize to the janitor, treating him kindly, now realizing they were speaking to a very wealthy person. Surprise and embarrassment filled their faces, while the room was filled with whispers and speculation about the unexpected turn of events. After the astonishing revelation at the wedding, Thomas and Peter delved deeper into their ancestry and discovered that they were actually descendants of Henri Decroix, the famous French artist whose works had been lost, which meant that any remaining work was worth millions of dollars. At some point in Henri's lineage, that painting was kept and passed down to the next generation, but as the years went by and the following generations became mixed, it was completely understandable that Thomas didn't have full knowledge of its history. This discovery not only confirmed the authenticity of the painting, but also revealed that a great fortune had been preserved in the name of his heirs. Against all expectations, the father and son suddenly found themselves heirs to an unimaginable fortune. Despite the sudden change in his financial situation, the man chose to keep his job as a janitor. His decision surprised many, but for him, work was more than just a source of income. It was a part of who he was. Reflecting his character and dedication, the humility he was known for throughout his life remained his greatest virtue, even in the face of the wealth he had just acquired. On the other hand, Emily's parents completely changed their attitude toward the janitor after this discovery. They tried to flatter him, perhaps hoping to get a share of the inheritance, or maybe they simply felt ashamed of their previous behavior. However, Thomas kept his distance, treating them politely but without falling for their attempts to get closer. His focus was on his family, his son, his daughter-in-law, and the grandchildren they would have. Over time, the relationship between the janitor and his daughter-in-law became close, developing into an almost fatherly relationship. Thomas was there to support her at every important moment, showing the same love and care he showed to Peter. His simple family grew with the arrival of many grandchildren, filling his life with joy and excitement. He loved spending time with them, telling them stories about his wonderful family life and his grandfather's talent in art, Henri Dicqua. Every story was a lesson in life. He taught them humility and hard work, and the importance of maintaining integrity no matter the circumstances. He knew that despite all the money in his inheritance, the true riches in his life were the people who loved him and whom he kept in his heart. The janitor proved that a man's greatness is not measured by his wealth, but by the size of his heart and the depth of his character, because humility and integrity are treasures that cannot be bought with money. If you like this story, I'm sure the next video that will appear on your screen will move your feelings as well.